because I do not have anything else. Let me just add a mic maybe. Audio input capture. Mic off. Add existing mic off. Hello, hello. Let me just check if it's working before I get to the meat of today. Today I didn't play Valorant, even though I was offered it. I watched the movie Ready Player One. Okay, for some reason mic's not working as it should. Can something be done? Let's see. Uh, here we go. Okay, just FYI, I watched it illegally because I didn't have the extra 200 to pay Amazon. I had an Amazon subscription, but I didn't have the money to pay it further, so sorry for that. I'll admit that happened with me. What the fuck is this for, man? It's a big butler. Anyway. So yeah, I was saying that I have watched Ready Player One, and firstly, my reaction to the film would be that it was a movie that moved me, and it was not the normal rom-com or I mean, it was good fiction with good VFX. Something I liked. One thing that just kind of put me off in the movie was I know they had a time limit and a duration, but the fact that his aunt got killed and his reaction was not to like tell the world about it or anything, but just go on with the game. So that was something I didn't expect happening. And regardless, it happened. People say it failed. I don't know the backstory to that. What could that mean? But otherwise, good movie, man. Good and VFX, good message at the end also. That reality is reality. And yeah, there's a lot of content, and we'll try and get through all of it as much as possible at least. I watched the honest trailer, but again, we'll watch it again.
Today's episode is brought to you by the U.S. Army. In a world where every movie is based on pre-existing books, comics, and video games, watch the snake of nerd culture devour its own tail. In a movie based on a pre-existing book, based on pre-existing movies,
I mean, I don't know of the book also.
comics, and video games.
The only reason I even watched it is because I saw a scene of VFX on Instagram getting viral.
So this is how
it pulled me to it.
imagination dies, with thunderous applause. Ready Player One. Enter the Oasis, a virtual world that lets you be anything you want. From a Navi who joined a boy band, to the love child of David Bowie and Admiral Akbar.
The fact that I don't know any of these references, I haven't seen Star Wars, is it? And I know David Bowie, but I
Where you can see, hear, and feel everything that happens. But since you control it by running on a treadmill in a skin-tight bodysuit, the whole experience probably smells like ass. Dude, you should really air out that van. I mean, crack a window or something. Clan.
The thing about this is the human mind gets used to smells. That's why you can see people living in areas that smell really bad to you. But it's a bad smell because you initially, people who have been there for long periods have adapted to it. That's why you don't know when you are smelling bad. And you have to rely on others to tell you that.
And up with 5 Easter egg hunters who lack the self-awareness to not call themselves Gunters.
Gunters, as in egg hunters.
There's Parzival and Artemis, star-crossed lovers hiding a tragic secret. That underneath their hot online avatars, they're both hot offline real people. But she's got a birthmark. Oh, a faint discoloration on her face, and you can barely
Honestly, this was also a point that came to my mind that we expect all people to be conventionally beautiful. So what if Echo was? Would the movie have received the same level of acceptance in these terms? Maybe, maybe not. But that's
Really see it in most
something to
lighting?
look out
No.
for.
The humanity. No, look away. It's so horrible. I'm gonna be sick. Joining them is Age, who hides the fact that she's a girl by talking like this.
Z, you gotta be more careful about who you meet in the Oasis.
Daito, the Japanese martial artist who in reality is a Japanese martial artist. And Sho, the gamer no one can believe is an 11-year-old boy, even though everyone who's ever beat you in Halo ends up being an 11-year-old boy. So wait, you can be anything you want, and they all went with slight exaggerations of themselves? Come on, be a 10-foot-tall bag of Funyuns, a talking raptor,
Alan.
a cloud made of microscope.
Another fact that I mean, do see similar characters and famous characters, but you do not see enough of famous similar. And when games are made, I mean, a game of this level probably would have different special people, but yeah, there was too less variety than there should have been.
Steve Buscemi's. Do something creative.
Also, he looks like Jack Frost himself. I mean, the main character of the film. So nothing like he was special.
Watch out for the evil CEO, Nolan Sorrento, who's got an evil plan to use the Oasis.
Also, I believe that if the game was there in real life and there were Easter eggs as such, people would have found all of them way faster than back in the race. That's something that people do on the fourth try of such a race, or even the third or second. So, I mean, if it's of that scale, that so many people exist. And I mean, another subsidiary business that would have existed is people who just play so that they can respawn and do things for you. Since everyone has a, and also characters not dying for long durations. When you are that on the lookout, everyone will kill you at every second, no matter how good or famous you are on an online avatar platform.
To make money, as opposed to the current CEO who uses the Oasis to make money.
I bought all these power-ups for this challenge and I lost it all.
I need one of those.
Okay, don't spend all your money.
Now, these Gunters must find 3 keys to win control of the Oasis, hidden by an awkward Willy Wonka.
Hooray.
Using their video game skills, pop culture knowledge,
It's based on the best-selling book by Stephen King, who hated the movie.
and what they probably could have guessed just by looking at him.
His biggest fear was kissing a girl.
Because in this world, the best people to run a trillion-dollar company are the biggest snobs at a Comic-Con.
A fanboy knows a hater.
See, Mom? I'm not wasting my life. You go to night school. Do you like references?
Oh, yeah.
You better, because this movie's got more references than a Big Bang Theory episode about the Justice League challenging the Avengers to an anime edition of Trivial Pursuit, full of obvious nerd touchstones.
Batman? Holy hanger.
I mean, this movie is so visually appealing to me personally, since I like games and video games and references and cool shit that happens in movies. I mean, fictional. I can't look at multiple shots of people talking like over and over. That does not visually entice me.
Grenade. For a Gundam
So does.
Oddly
And the fact
specific
that
late
I know
90s stuff.
Gundam, I've
Okay.
watched
Oh,
Gundam.
am I being punked? You still have enough to pay for that
That-
something about Mary hairdo.
GoldenEye.
Playing as?
Odd job.
Even when they're talking, there's like so much to be distracted by and then stay on the screen. Because the fact is, if that were two people talking in a random, I would have preferred watching the screen much longer. But there was the Iron Giant behind them.
And an extended sequence that asks, what if Kubrick was so hard up for cash that he sold The Shining to Universal Studios Florida? Whee! Now let's go to 2001 land. I want to ride the space baby. So ride along with visionary director Steven Spielberg as he brings his trademark wonder to a tale of an America in chaos, where we ignore our problems by using recycled pop culture as an escape, and only take action when our corporate overlords threaten to put more ads in our pay-to-win video games, while the offline world continues to slide into extreme poverty and environmental collapse. Who doesn't love a good fantasy, am I right? Good one, Steve. Starring Miles Teller, Ansel Alden Ehrenreich, Tyler Sheridan, yeah? Nailed it. Sweet
I didn't get that joke, to be honest.
Lord, no, don't show it again. No, my eyes, it burns. Ben Mendelsohn, Age to the Izorg, Oh cool, T.J. Miller's in this. Said absolutely no one. Arthur Slugworth. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pop regurgitation. Get good, noobs. And this guy, staring directly into the camera while he strangles Ty Sheridan. That's unsettling. We are VR Troopers.
Holy hand grenade.
Wait, this movie is not.
I mean, the fact that earlier the cooperation and that it happened also surprises me. I mean, just look at this movie, man. I even liked Tron for the very same reason. It was a new world for me.
Captain Midnight.
So was the 2x. I think 1.5.
So walking out of Ready Player One, I didn't plan on making a video about it. I didn't like the movie, but I didn't really want to pick on it either. I don't think there's anything wrong with a certain amount of celebration for
I mean, people are too harsh with the critic, I guess. Or just two different choices. I liked the movie, and
nostalgia and fandom. I mean, this channel indulges in a little nostalgia almost every video, so, you know, who am I to judge? But the more I thought about it, the more that one particular scene really got under my skin. Maybe you remember it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't because it's really easy to miss. It's when the character Samantha breaks into the villain's VR rig and takes a look at his files. Then everyone has a good laugh about the fact that he apparently likes Nancy Drew. Now, it's easy enough to say why it's in the movie. He's the big scary bad guy and he likes a children's detective series mostly aimed at little girls. Haha, easy joke. But it really stood out to me because of the sneering way that the character said it. Every other piece of pop culture in the movie is treated as a beloved classic. Back to the Future, Atari 2600 games, old rock songs by one-hit wonders. They're all treated with the same sort of reverence that's usually reserved for characters in really earnest Christian dramas quoting the scripture or something. But not Nancy Drew. And that really bugged me. Not because I think any of those things are bad. I like Space Invaders and Doc Brown as much as the next guy. But because it cemented the fact that this movie isn't really about nostalgia and loving old stuff from when you were a kid. Not for everyone, at least. No, it's celebrating a very specific form of fandom. The kind nostalgically remembered by the 40-something guys who wrote this movie and the book it's based on. Oh, and all the modern geek culture stuff that Warner Brothers could get the rights to. Which is fine, but also very limited. And that becomes really obvious when characters discuss Buckaroo Banzai like it's Citizen Kane, but dismiss Nancy Drew, something that millions of people also have nostalgia for, as goofy trash. You kind of can't have it both ways. So in the spirit of Nancy Drew, I'm going to be putting this movie under the magnifying glass and trying to get to the bottom of what about it feels so totally empty. And to do that, I'm going to have to start with one simple question.
Okay, Atari, let's see your best pitch.
Why did Steven Spielberg want to make this movie? No, seriously, why? Let's think about this for a minute. Spielberg is a 71-year-old man. By the time stuff like the Atari 2600 came out, he'd already made Jaws, and was in the middle of releasing Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He had no childhood nostalgia for any of this stuff like the writer of the book did. Well, except maybe King Kong. So why did he make it? According to him, it's because he was so fascinated by the implications of the world of the story, where everyone spends most of their life inside VR. But I find that kind of hard to believe, because the movie itself doesn't seem that into exploring that idea at all. Like, Ready Player One is mostly a really breezy movie about how fun it is to play video games with your friends. It doesn't really have anything meaningful to say about VR. So my theory is different. I think Spielberg decided to adapt this book because he got a little desperate and a little bored. You might be thinking, desperate? How could Steven Spielberg, the king of Hollywood, be desperate? Well, here's the thing. Spielberg has a really well-earned reputation as Mr. Blockbuster, the guy who makes the crowd-pleasing hits. But if you look at his releases in the past 20 years or so, that's not really him anymore. He's made good movies, definitely. Stuff like Bridge of Spies and Lincoln are very good-looking, well-crafted movies, and more entertaining than they're sometimes given credit for. But the light and fun blockbusters, I just don't think he has that much interest in them anymore. Movies like Minority Report and War of the Worlds are big sci-fi movies, sure, but they're also very dark and have this really paranoid, downer, post-9/11 feel to them, which works. I actually really like both those movies. But when he tries to recapture the old magic of Spielberg, Raiders, E.T., that kind of thing, you get this, and this. He keeps trying to make the movies that his 30-year-old self would make, but I'm just not sure that he can. Then there's the boredom. To some extent, at least with his bigger movies, I think Spielberg has tragically caught a case of Cameron disease, where skilled and successful directors get so invested in the tech side of filmmaking that they treat almost everything else as an afterthought. Symptoms include protagonists who are the least interesting part of their own movie. All the signs are there. I mean, he even keeps saying he's going to make another CGI 1010, a sequel to a movie that almost no one cared about, and a film he made with another man diagnosed with Cameron disease, Peter Jackson. With movies like The Post, he doesn't rely on that stuff much because you can tell he's actually engaged with the character and the story. They interest him. I'm not sure the story of Ready Player One does. He doesn't seem
okay, the main protagonist here, there was no personality of his that I remember as such, because it was just a bland person who knows pop culture. It's a story about the world. You have limited time, you have 2 hours. I mean, sure, there were areas where you could show his personality a little more. He was desperate. That's a part of his personality, I remember. Ready to meet someone online. I watched a Twitch streams. He was tried to portray as nerdy when he didn't look nerdy at all. So in that aspect, yes. But again, it was an entertainment fest for me. I do not credit or view a piece of entertainment as first art or something I can make a character sketch out of or write a essay upon. Is it something that helped me pass time while I had fun? The answer was yes, it did help me pass time while I was having fun. So in that terms, it was good piece of entertainment.
Seemed to care too much about these people or their character arcs, instead devoting most of his energy to Mechagodzillas and space battles. Speaking of the story though, let's get into it.
So yeah, those 10-second short references, yeah, I have a shorter attention span now due to reels and all, but it catered to that, and that was a nice thing for me.
Chucky. Nobody in the future loved Chucky.
Adapted from Ernest Cline's hit book, Ready Player One follows Wade Watts, a citizen in a futuristic dystopia, an impoverished world where most people spend the majority of their time inside a highly advanced VR game. The game's creator, a benevolent trillionaire played by the always great Mark Rylance, dies and leaves behind a contest that involves solving a series of puzzles revolving around 70s and 80s pop culture that he loved as a kid. This is actually a pretty cool setup. I think it's got a lot of promise. The problem, though, is that the story isn't really interested in digging into this world it creates, except in the shallowest possible way. And I'm just speaking about the movie here. I haven't finished the book, so I'm not going to judge that. Ty Sheridan's Wade Watts, who, appropriately enough I guess, looks like the default setting in a video game's character creation screen, gets the absolute minimum amount of development. And the movie does him no favors by surrounding him with characters that are just a lot more interesting than him. At one point, Artemis, the character who he ends up with at the end, delivers this speech about her backstory, mentioning that her dad was basically trapped in his job working for IOI, trying to pay back this company that was intentionally burying him in debt. Kind of like old company mining towns back in the 1800s. And that was interesting. I wish the movie cared about it more. But no, it can't be bothered with that because hey look, the Iron Giant's doing the Terminator 2 thing. You remember from the movie? Terminator 2? People like that? Ugh. Sadly, this philosophy is present throughout the whole movie. IOI is one of the biggest missed opportunities in the film. The concept of the loyalty centers, these places where they trap maxed out employees or customers and force them to work in near slavery to pay off the debt, is legitimately creepy and interesting, but that's always relegated to the background. The main thing our heroes are worried about is that this evil company is going to add microtransactions and ads to the game. Which, like, I get it, no one likes those, and the scene where they mention how many ads they can shove into a player's face without giving them a seizure is pretty funny, but come on, that's just a much safer, less interesting route to go. And the fact that the main villain feels like an evil real estate developer trying to tear down
Sure, I mean, parallel world drawn would have been better, but that would have been better for a series. With have both running simultaneously and both for both this guy and Ready Player One's main protagonist. I in fact would have preferred it was about two people about to reach to the key rather than a corporation versus a underdog. It didn't have to be that. It could have been a middle class team or upper class team, and upper class people didn't have to be snobs. I do not understand why do we have to put people into certain specific zones that someone's shitty, someone's cool, someone's not. Why can't it just simply be that people are people and are wanting to win a contest, some through any means, and again, does not have to be some through any means. It can be everyone with the same means. So yeah, personality is in that fact, but it does not have to be to the extremes.
the kids' community center in a movie from 1994 doesn't really help either.
America's classic thrillers come to life. The Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries. An adventure into suspense.
When you really get down to it, the plot of the movie and the plot's intended meaning are at total odds with each other. You can tell the filmmaker really wanted to lean into the whole Willy Wonka angle. In fact, Spielberg even tried to get the Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, to play the role before he sadly passed away. But it just doesn't work. Halliday's intended message is that this pop culture Oasis stuff may be cool, but it's reality that really matters. And his way to deliver that message was a puzzle that requires everyone to obsess over old pop culture and spend a bunch of time in the Oasis. Like, I'm not really sure he thought this one through. And in the end, after all the world building, the millions spent on special effects, and the interesting questions about VR that are raised in the first act, what does it all add up to? The hero getting rich, getting the girl, and a gentle little message that, hey, going outside every once in a while is a good time too. Really? That's it? The guy who directed Minority Report, one of the smartest and most forward-thinking sci-fi films of the past few decades that tackled technology and asked questions about privacy and free will in a digital world, is willing to settle for a story whose purpose could be summed up by one of those little prompts that used to pop up on the Wii telling you to maybe step away from the virtual tennis for a few minutes and take a break. Like, come on, Steve.
Not every great movie or great arcade game makes a great home video game. That's why when Mattel Electronics turned Tron into Tron Home Video Game.
Now maybe I'm being too harsh on this movie. I know a lot of people will probably say, oh, it's just fun, turn your brain off and watch some well-done action. But here's the thing, this is Spielberg. He's made Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, The Last Crusade, great popcorn movies that don't pander to their audience or talk down to it. Ready Player One, on the other hand, seems like the work of a man who doesn't want to make those kinds of movies, but knows that's what's expected of him. Every forced reference, strange joke, and all too convenient payoff feels like Spielberg desperately looking to the audience and going, this is what you guys want, right? Right? And the answer, for me at least, is no, it's not. I mean, seriously, you're telling me that Simon Pegg's character is one of the founders of the Oasis spent years pretending to be a robot in a virtual library? What the hell was—
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up.
Well, again, yeah, he does. Well, I do enjoy it. Because what's the point of? I mean, sure, the movie sticks with you and there's a lot of things. I do enjoy art as well at times when presented to me in a manner that I like. But not the case for this one. I enjoyed it as much as I could have. Hmm. Oh, what else? What else? Okay, so let's change this.
You got it, you got it.
No, this isn't one of the countless King Kong rehashes. It's a scene from Ready Player One, and it, along with several other odd moments ham-fisted into the movie, are a perfect example of how Ready Player One misused its premise. It killed the art of homage, soured our nostalgia, and ultimately ruined any chance the movie had at relevancy. But before we don our VR headsets and jump into the Oasis, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. 2018's Ready Player One is an odd beast. Adapted from the best-selling novel of the same name by Ernest Cline and directed by Steven Spielberg, the movie had a respectable amount of money at the box office and was generally well received by its audience. On the surface, Ready Player One is just a fun romp through nerd culture, a love letter to video games, movies, and the entire decade of the 80s, made by the man responsible for a lot of things being referenced in the first place. Yet, somehow, it totally disappeared from public consciousness after its release only 4 years ago. How could that be? Well, there's a lot about Ready Player One that is often, ironically, overlooked. At its core, the Ready Player One movie is about a contest for which the prize is $500 billion and full ownership of the Oasis, a virtual reality game most people adopted as a sort of replacement for their real lives. The only way to win this contest is by obsessing over the recently deceased creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, and memorizing everything you possibly can about him, particularly his favorite movies, TV shows, and games. Our protagonist, teenage orphan Wade Watts, is a proper Halliday historian. He's fighting against a corporation called IOI, which doesn't care at all about Halliday or what the Oasis—
Well, I do believe one thing that wouldn't have happened, even though there's such a big lore and all and everything. When you have the choice in the game, whatever limitations it presents you with that, when you have so many capabilities and possibilities, you probably wouldn't go around looking for Halliday. I mean, sure, people who like to do puzzle solving games would, but even then, there are better things. I mean, you can do anything. So, sure, that is also a possibility, but
means to its many users.
believe
IOI
that
is just
someone
trying to win the
good
contest
on
because
that
owning the Oasis
gaming
is
side
roughly equivalent to owning the
would be
world.
going for the
So
puzzle
essentially,
side.
Ready Player One is the story of a battle between a nerd who loves and reveres pop culture and a company who does not. Where Wade sees the deeper meaning and value in these cultural classics, IOI sees only a tool to be used in the quest for money and power. When you take that into consideration, there are some aspects of Ready Player One that start to feel a little strange. By design, Ready Player One is chock full of references. We can't quite call them homages, but we'll get to that in a bit. The point is that almost every inch of the screen, every second of time, and every bit of dialogue is in service to some other well-known IP.
Hey, are you seeing this? Yeah, I see it. That's Canada's bike from Akira.
Remember that Steven Spielberg directed this thing. The king of Hollywood blockbuster events and the brilliant mind behind half our collective childhoods obviously knows a thing or two about restraint and reverence. Yet, it's severely lacking here. But to give credit where it's due, Spielberg was just working with what he had. Ernest Cline's novel is arguably even more jam-packed with significant names and places than its movie adaptation. And the overabundance of these references is its own problem. At some point, maybe around the second time Overwatch's tracer shows up on screen, your eyes kind of glaze over from the constant barrage of iconography. The movie ends up becoming a meaningless pop culture-shaped blob. It's bizarre because if you don't think about Ready Player One for too long, it can be easy to see it as a sort of less cartoony version of the Lego movie. All our favorite characters are here, coexisting, and we get to enjoy seeing them interact with one another. Both movies look beautiful and the action is enjoyable. But that line of thinking can only get you so far, because while the Lego movie presents itself as silly and not to be taken seriously,
Honey, where are my pants?
it does a much better job of examining the properties it's referencing. Lego's Batman is fun to watch because they deconstruct the character and turn him into something else entirely.
Bruce Wayne? Who's that? Sound like a cool guy.
You can only do that if you really understand the character to begin with. On the other hand, Ready Player One's Batman reference is literally just saying the character's name and showing him to us on screen. Because the movie demands to be taken seriously, it can't play with its references the way the Lego movie does. Some of the references in Ready Player One are just simple nods. Others are hugely important to the plot, but none of them are used for anything more than a play to the audience's nostalgia for decades past. Take the Shining sequence, for example. The excuse to have such a beloved movie in Ready Player One is that Halliday took his date to see it, even though she wanted to go dancing. He apparently always regretted this, so he memorialized his mistake in the Oasis. But other than the vague connection of Halliday's backstory, this iconography from The Shining is virtually pointless, unless you're trying to earn nostalgia points from your audience. We as viewers get to relive all the best moments from the film through the perspective of Wade's friend H, and it's really fun on a visual level. But from a thematic standpoint, there's no reason for this extended reference to The Shining, which for the record was a war game sequence in the book that tied a little bit better into the plot. But apparently, such a dramatic difference in genre, tone, and theme of the movie you're trying to pay homage to doesn't matter matter as much as a cool shot of the blood elevator. And while that is very obviously just a shameless, mostly harmless hit of nostalgia for the audience, there are other references in Ready Player One that are actively harmful to the source material. The first key challenge in the movie is an admittedly awesome action sequence, wherein Wade has to race against a bunch of other hopeful winners and escape various obstacles along the way. One of those obstacles is King Kong. After striking a familiar pose, he leaps from the top of the Empire State Building and causes some deadly destruction around the racetrack in the city, while Wade and the others try to avoid him. This is where things get a little dicey. The original 1933 King Kong film and most of the revisits since have been about humankind's exploitation of nature, and have made some attempts to characterize Kong as a kind of gentle giant, a monster of man's own making. Ready Player One's Kong is certainly a monster, and that's about as far as the reference goes. The movie reduces him to a physically recognizable shell that not only ignores but directly contradicts the intent of the original creators. And that's far from the only time the movie does this. The most glaringly obvious example of the issue is Ready Player One's use of the Iron Giant.
Where'd you find an Iron Giant?
Find it. I'm building it.
Brad Bird's 1999 animated movie debut was created after the tragic death of his sister. The Iron Giant himself was intended to be an anti-gun and anti-war symbol. Knowing that, it's a little jarring to see the Iron Giant in Ready Player One used as a glorified power-up in an all-out war against Mechagodzilla. These references aren't just clumsy, they're thoughtless, which is why it's hard to call any of these over 100 references in Ready Player One an homage. To be an homage, a reference needs to be done with respect and a thorough understanding of the source material. Ready Player One doesn't seem to get that, possibly because half the time, Spielberg is just homaging himself. So for a movie and franchise that claims to be on the side of the pop culture-loving nerd at the center of its story, it sure does seem to have a lot more in common with its corporate villain. Like IOI, Ready Player One engages with the nostalgic properties it references, only as far as it takes to get what they want out of them. In the case of IOI, that's the possession of the Oasis. But for Ready Player One, it's the adoration of fans and enough profit to make a sequel. In their quest for money and power, Warner Bros. And Amblin Entertainment cheapened the properties they purported to love. In some cases, they cheapened properties they even had a direct hand in creating. And that's not to say that the entire movie is terrible. We mentioned how great the visuals were and how intensely awesome the action is. Spielberg has always known how to make huge event movies, and Ready Player One is no different on that front. Even watching a clip out of context can't diminish how polished and fun the movie is to watch, and that deserves to be commended. But in the end, with such a massive emphasis on the recognizable media that surrounds the movie, Ready Player One consequently has no identity for itself. The shallow inclusion of memorable franchises and the strip mining of them to bleed nostalgic dollars out of a movie going public has paradoxically actually made the finished film much more forgettable. Thanks so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you
there's nothing that people will reference from this very movie. So now that I've heard such a good opinion on it, I kind of now do get why it was not something. I mean, yeah, a movie does not have to have meaning on just the first day. In the long run, I will forget about it, but it did the job for me. I'll say that. It still does the job for me. I want to look at this scene even though I've seen the movie right now. So, yeah. Ready Player One, what's the difference? Okay, we'll watch some more videos about it. 300 Easter eggs. Not. Okay. You watch this.
The future. It's 2018, but we can't help but feeling nostalgic for the pop culture of yesteryear.
Boy, what a great series this will make.
And you'd be hard-pressed to find a better example of this than Ernest Cline's 2011 novel Ready Player One, which lathered us up in iconic and obscure references of the 70s and 80s. I didn't live it, but I do miss it. Of course you do. It was pretty awesome. So it's no surprise that Warner Bros. Picked up the movie rights, leaving card-carrying geekster Zach Penn and Ernest Cline himself to write the script that would eventually be directed by 80s icon Steven Spielberg, thus creating an infinity mirror of postmodernism that folds in on itself and explodes. Whoa! So without further ado, and no restraint on spoilers, it's time to ask, what's the difference? Before any sci-fi can break into its plot, it must first set the stage. The movie drops us in 2045 Columbus, Ohio, and reveals how Earth has become a real bummer with all sorts of social, economic, and environmental issues plaguing humanity. Corporate fat cats like IOI wield unparalleled power while mankind stops trying to solve its problems and instead distracts itself hoping to outlive them. This distraction comes in the form of the greatest video game ever made, the Oasis, a virtual MMORPG where your reality is only limited by your imagination. The book, however, begins in Oklahoma City and paints an even bleaker picture of reality. Think energy crisis, widespread famine, poverty, disease, abandoned cities resulting from catastrophic war and neglect. A real horror show. So it's no surprise that so many people choose to live their waking life inside the Oasis, which is much more than a video game. It's a complete society where people have jobs, go to school, vote in elections, do damn near everything but eat and sleep. The movie breezes through the exposition and introduces the book's inciting incident, which is simplified for brevity's sake. When the father of the Oasis, James Halliday, passes away in 2040, he leaves behind a quest involving a series of clues leading to 3 keys that, when collected, would lead to an Easter egg, which awards the player full control of the virtual world. Oh, and $500 billion. Holy Cindy Lauper. Who? But in the book, Halliday's quest is much more complicated. Not only do players have to find keys, but they also have to find corresponding gates. So by making the quest consist of just 3 challenges, the movie has already cut its plot down to a more manageable size. In both mediums, the quest sparks an entire community of egg hunters, aka Gunters, and our protagonist Wade Watts is one of the most dedicated. A poor kid from the slums, Wade has an infatuation with all the pop culture Halliday worship. He wants nothing more than to find the egg and escape poverty. There's really only one glaring difference between movie Wade and book Wade. Book Wade is a little on the chubbier side. Yeah, but Ty Sheridan can't get chubby. He's got X-Mans to make. I know. Hey, you remember the Truffle Shuffle? Wade enters the Oasis as his avatar Parzival, who in the movie looks more akin to James Cameron's Na'vi characters. Book Parzival, however, retains a human aesthetic. Not wasting time, the movie quickly introduces us to the rest of the key players.
Okay, H.
First up, Wade's one and only friend H, a kick-ass gamer described in the book as a tall Caucasian male with brown hair.
Artemis, a famous stunter who in the book is described as Rubenesque, a unique body type in a world where most female avatars are unfathomably thin and busty.
The movie also gives us a quick shot of Daito and Sho, the samurai brothers. In the book, both are Japanese and go by the names Daito and Shoto, but the movie makes Shoto Chinese, thus shortening his name to Sho, which translates to the Chinese character meaning longevity.
Lastly, we meet our villain, Nolan Sorrento, who in both mediums runs the Halliday Quest department for the nefarious corporation IOI, and directs an army of identical avatars known as the Sixers, though in the book their avatars are all hulking males with suits.
Anyway, once the movie blows through the characters, we're immediately dropped into the Copper Key Challenge, an impossible race through Liberty Island, and boy, is it exciting. Oh, look out, it's T-Rex, remember Jurassic Park? I totally do. One of my favorites.
The book, however, takes its time getting to the first challenge. For one thing, Parzival doesn't have complete access to the Oasis, so we spend the first few chapters on the school planet of Ludos, with classes that read like an episode of Magic School Bus.
Both mediums show Wade's unfortunate home life, living with his aunt and her douchebag boyfriend in the stacks, as well as his unwavering research into all things Halliday. In the book, he references Halliday's journals, a written log of Halliday's thoughts and rants about pop culture. But the movie takes a more visual approach by having the journals represented as 3D recreations of Halliday's memories, and puts more emphasis on Halliday's personal life rather than the pop culture he was obsessed with. It's here that movie Parzival picks up on an offhanded remark that gives him the key to winning the race.
Why can't we go backwards for once? Backwards, really fast, fast as we can.
Parzival does just that, driving backwards until he reaches the finish line unscathed. And with that, he's on the scoreboard.
The book's first challenge is completely different. Parzival finds its location hidden on the school planet that he was sequestered on. But in order to get the key, he must first win a game of Joust against the terrifying Lich King of D&D lore. Yeah. It is really fun, though decidedly less visual than an impossible race. And unlike the movie, he obtains the Copper Key on his first time out, running into Artemis on his way out of the cave.
But remember, obtaining the keys in the book is just half the battle. So Parzival heads to a recreation of Halliday's childhood home and enters the first gate, in which he must play out the entire film War Games as Matthew Broderick's character, David Lightman, until he prevents nuclear war and is awarded a clue to the location of the Jade Key.
Now here's where the book and the movie split pretty hard. You see, after our heroes earn their places on the scoreboard, the movie's characters work together to solve the other challenges. But in the book, everyone is a loner, rivals even. Sure, H and Parzival are friends, but there was always a competitiveness at the heart of their relationship.
Once Parzival and the others find the Copper Key in both mediums, IOI kicks into full-on tracking mode.
Gotta find them kids.
The movie changes perspective from Wade to Sorrento in order to bring us inside the corporate boardroom, where their evil plan of aggressively monetizing the Oasis is revealed. We also get to see Sorrento obtain the Orb of Ocelox from his friend and IOI mercenary, IROC.
The book, however, never changes perspective, instead alluding to IOI's actions through speculation and word of mouth. And rather than being a badass wizard mercenary, Book IROC is a fellow student who broadcasts enough detail about Parzival for IOI to discover Wade's real name and address. Realizing Wade could not be bought, IOI blows up Wade's trailer, thinking he's still inside.
But because movie IOI still doesn't have Parzival's real name, the screenwriters are forced to rearrange scenes from the book. First, IROC follows Parzival and Artemis to their first date at the Distracted Globe. It's on the dance floor that Z blurts out his real name, giving IROC exactly what he came for. That's when the Sixers attack the club, and our heroes narrowly escape by rewinding time. So now that IOI finally has Wade's name and address, they make their move on the trailer.
But in the book, Parzival and Artemis visit the nightclub some couple weeks after the explosion. And rather than a proper date, their night at the Distracted Globe is due to a birthday party invitation from Halliday's old friend and business partner Ogden Morrow. The Sixers still crash the party, but it's the great and powerful Og that stops the corporate army with a godlike vengeance.
You shall not pass!
Meanwhile, in the movie, IOI just blew up Wade's only family, and the screenwriters start giving the movie brand new plot lines. Before Wade can process what has just happened, he's kidnapped by an unsavory-looking character and brought to what turns out to be the headquarters for an underground rebellion headed up by none other than Artemis.
Welcome to the rebellion, Wade.
This is a momentous meeting that won't happen in the book till the last few pages, and without any mention of a rebel faction.
Instead, Book Wade changes his identity and moves to Columbus, Ohio, where he continues the search for the Jade Key by himself. This goes on for about a year, in which he never leaves his apartment, with only max headroom and a sex doll for company. It's embarrassing.
The movie doesn't have this big gap in time. Instead, Parzival and Artemis work together to solve the mystery of the Jade Key, which turns out to be hidden in a memory of Halliday's one and only date with Kira, Morrow's future wife.
So what happened? Nothing. I invited her over.
It was on that date that Halliday failed to kiss her after watching The Shining, so the High Five joined forces to find Kira in the Overlook Hotel.
Care to dance? Do you know how long I've been waiting for you to ask?
With only one more key to go, Sorrento's lackeys raid the rebellion's HQ, and Samantha heroically gives herself up in order to save Wade.
None of that happens in the book. Instead, Parzival loses his place on the scoreboard after slacking on the quest, but is thrown a bone by H and eventually obtains the Jade Key playing Zork. He then heads to Blade Runner's Tyrell building, where he plays an immersive recreation of the classic video game Black Tiger. And with that, the second gate is cleared, followed closely by Parzival finding the crystal key on the planet of Syrinx.
2112.
Great album.
You remember that album? Meanwhile, in the movie, Samantha toils in one of IOI's infamous loyalty sins.
Why can't we just have the book into a series? I mean, the book sounds really amazing.
While her friends conveniently meet in the real world and
Better to
concoct an
follow.
Inception-like plan to get her out. By using Sorrento's password, left foolishly on a sticky note in a previous scene, they hack his rig, tricking him into thinking he's being held up in the real world when he's actually still inside the Oasis. So, he gives up some passcodes and voila, Samantha is free from the bonds of indentured servitude.
Oh, yeah!
But IOI has already discovered the location of the final key on planet Doom. And so in both mediums, IOI uses the Orb of Osuvox to create an impenetrable shield around the final challenge. With no foreseeable way to get through the orb from the outside, Book Wade gets his fake identity arrested into IOI servitude, where he uses black market passwords to infiltrate IOI's intranet. Wade steals all sorts of damning evidence about their nefarious activities, and gathers intel on the orb. After a couple weeks of sabotage, he slips out using a disguise.
But in the movie, it's Artemis who goes all covert behind enemy lines, breaking into Sorrento's rig and obtaining the phrase needed to shut down the orb, while the other High Five members log in from H's truck and call for all the avatars of the Oasis to attack.
Are you willing to fight? In the book, our heroes are helped out by Ogden Morrow, who flies them from their respective countries to his home in Oregon. And as the designated time of attack approaches, so do our heroes, each sporting their very own giant robot, as opposed to the movie, which only gives H a robot in the form of an iron giant. Ugh, remember Vin Diesel?
Meanwhile, in the movie, the Sixers are hard at work on the final challenge, playing Adventure. The assault is already raging outside the shield when Artemis takes down the orb by uttering the magic phrase.
In the book, Wade is the one who takes down the orb. During his time as an indentured servant, he had programmed a Sixer supply droid to take an antimatter friction induction bomb out of storage and carry it over to the orb's location and detonate it, killing the high-level wizard maintaining the orb.
It's pure pandemonium in both mediums, prompting Sorrento to pull out his Mechagodzilla. But have no fear, because Movie Daito's got a secret weapon, temporarily transforming into a Gundam robot from Mobile Suit Gundam. Tussle, 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 Daito's transformation runs out and he gets barbecued.
But in the book, Daito isn't even around for the final battle. During the search for the Jade Key, IOI tracks him down in real life and throws him off a building. And because Shoto's best friend was killed by these corporate assholes, he goes nuts on Sorrento in an epic fight worthy of a kaiju film. Shoto does his best, but is ultimately killed. Then it's up to Wade to use a powerful item to turn himself into Ultraman, and he tears through Sorrento like tinfoil.
In the movie, it's ultimately Artemis that takes Sorrento down. And now that he knows she's in the Sixer war room, Parzival takes her avatar out, forcing Samantha to get out of Dodge. And when the final challenge is in sight, Sorrento and IROC show up for one last bribery attempt, and after Parzival politely declines, Sorrento uses the catalyst to destroy every avatar on the planet.
The book, however, has Parzival, H, and Artemis open the final gate together, but before they can step inside, the catalyst goes off. Damn. But lo and behold, Parzival remains alive due to a magical quarter he obtained by playing a perfect game of Pac-Man. Extra life!
In the movie, Parzival's extra life comes from a quarter given to him by the curator after winning a bet.
Oh, wow. A quarter.
So with his second chance, Parzival searches for the adventure Easter egg while IOI's lackeys give our heroes the car chase of their life.
But in the book, Parzival has a few more hoops to jump through with IOI on his tail, as Sorrento and the Sixers enter the final gate right behind him, giving us a final race to see who beats the challenge first. We get a bout with the classic arcade game Tempest, a movie sync with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and finally, Adventure. Once he finds the egg, it's game over, and Parzival wins it all!
However, the movie gives Parzival one final test, wherein he must refuse to sign a legal document reminiscent of Halliday making Morrow sign over his shares in the company, an action he had always considered his greatest regret. So after refusing to make the same mistake, Wade passes the final test and is rewarded.
In both mediums, Halliday explains how to shut down the Oasis for good, and admits that reality, although painful, will always be better than a fantasy. But unique to the movie is this last-ditch effort of Sorrento pulling a gun on Wade in the real world. But this cold-hearted monster melts once he sees Wade shed a tear over his win. Aww. It's sweet because he grew a heart.
In the last scene, the movie finally brings the cast together with Ogden Morrow, and Wade realizes that he was the curator all along.
In the book, it's Wade and Artemis who finally meet face to face, and after they share a kiss, he realizes that for the first time, he wasn't in a hurry to log back into the Oasis. While Movie Wade has a similar arc, he also uses his new control of the Oasis to set login restrictions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that humanity can spend more time in reality. Where the book shows a single character finding happiness in the real world, the movie uses that lesson to implement change on a global level.
So as you can see, Penn and Klein took great pains to streamline the plot, shortening the timeline and simplifying the quest. And with the minefield that is copyright law, some references were changed. Other references were simply updated to appeal to a broader audience or altered to be more visual. Finally, with Spielberg attached, the group of kids worked together throughout, ending the movie with a heartfelt message of optimism that reality is worth living, and we should all get to it.
Hey, you kids, stop worshiping my old movies and get outside for a change! I can't do a Spielberg impression, I'm sorry.
That's it for Ready Player One. Don't forget to subscribe to Cinefix for more. What's the difference?
Oh, nice. Look down. Okay, what was in this line? This This and the Easter egg count. Okay, anything more? Movie dubs, nostalgia critic. Oh, nice. Pitch meeting. And scene. See? This was my reaction to it. I found it amazing as well. Oh, it's unique. Okay, there's a lot more to cover. I'll watch a film theater first.
Fun fact, did you know that I started on YouTube in 2011, the same year that Ernest Cline wrote Ready Player One? And look at both of us now. We both have published books. Nope, sorry, I guess that's just him. But we both have millions of dollars in licensing and residuals. No, again, I guess that's definitely him and not me. But hey, we both have a blockbuster movie hitting theaters no time soon. That's again just Ernest Cline. Well, shoot, what have I been doing with all my time? Screw you, Ernest, no one likes an overachiever. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, where, come to think of it, I do have something in common with Ernest Cline. People only care about us because we created properties that ride off of people's nostalgia. Feels good, man. Feels good. Now, as one of the hardest core nerds out there, you think I'd be sweating through my tube socks at the idea of Ready Player One. Set in the year 2044, it's a futuristic sci-fi movie about a treasure hunt happening in the most advanced massive multiplayer online game in history called Oasis, or ontologically anthropocentric sensory immersive simulation. It's got the good guy, Wade, fighting against the evil corporation to find the ultimate video game Easter egg that promises to give the player a massive fortune and control over the entire game. The premise is truly impressive, but there are a few bones I gotta pick with this thing. You see, in the movie, the reason why most of the people spend all their time in the Oasis is that most of the population lives in IRL poverty, including our hero Wade. And hey, I'm all about the underdog coming out of nothing and fighting the powers that be. It's the story of every good YouTuber that I know. But the world of Ready Player One gets so ridiculous sometimes that if you actually look at it using real sci instead of just sci-fi, our buddy Wade literally wouldn't survive the opening credits. And no, I'm not talking about some super advanced technology where someone's getting zapped with fiber optic cables or getting their memory wiped by their own haptic suit. Let's face it, by 2044 technology will be so advanced that there's really no way to predict the state of video games or personal technology. I can only sit here and salivate thinking of how great things will be and start worshipping my Google overlords now. No, I'm talking way more basic than that. The biggest threat in this movie isn't technology or evil corporations or even really bad eye strain. It is the engineering of everyone's home. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, in an episode that I've dedicated to a movie about super futuristic video games, I am focused on the civil engineering. And isn't that why you all come here in the first place? Suck on that, Ernest Cline! You may have millions of people around the world excited about your nostalgia trip of a movie. I'm getting millions of people excited about basic architecture. Boom!
Okay, maybe I won't watch pertaining to my interest right now. I'd like to talk about the movie a little more than just that. I think I understood the ending.
Hi guys, I'm Eric Boston. Ready Player One is a thrilling movie about obsessive gamers' pursuit of online Easter eggs. And as someone who basically does exactly that on YouTube, I think it broke me. There's so many damn Easter eggs and references and cameos and sly little winks. It's like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. Everything's edible, egg flavored. And yeah, Wonka is one of the references in this movie. So let's rewatch Ready Player One. You know, just turn it over and shake out all the goodies that you might miss. I spotted over 300 things. And rather than just list them and have you take my word for it, I'm going to show you where you can find everything. Spoilers ahead, and let's get started. Okay, even before the movie starts, director Steven Spielberg throws us two little nods to one of the biggest pop culture touchstones of this movie, Back to the Future. Notice how the opening titles are a similar font and capitalization as the way Back to the Future opens. And right as the Amblin name appears on screen, Amblin, the way is Spielberg's production company, we hear the music Jump by Van Halen. It's just a great 80s rock song that plays well against Wade's jumping down from his trailer home in the stacks, but also his jump into his escape in the Oasis. And if you really want to stretch things, that's what we do here. Eddie Van Halen was also Marty McFly's favorite guitarist. Remember, he used it to torture his dad into sleeping with his mom. Real dark movie. As Wade descends the stacks, he passes a neighbor who gets a Pizza Hut delivery via drone. This could be yet another nod Back to the Future Part 2, where they depict how future societies evolve by the way they get their Pizza Hut. Wade greets his neighbor, Mrs. Gilmore, with another 80s music reference. She's wearing a shirt showing the album cover of Synchronicity by The Police. And then Wade brings us into his hideout, which is full of missable references to 80s gaming and toys. If you look closely, you can see stickers for the Garbage Pail Kids, as well as stickers for Qbert. Wade hangs his Oasis visor on a joystick for the Commodore 64 game console, and on the wall behind him as he puts on his visor is an old Nintendo Zapper. You know, the one he used to shoot that smug freaking dog for mocking you in Duck Hunt. Hate that. There are also a few references to comics throughout this band. Wade takes off his glasses and sets them on an old X-Men lunchbox. Also, on Wade's visor, he put a Batman sticker. First many Cape Crusader cameos in this movie. Then we get another literary Easter egg as Wade takes us into the Oasis. And one of the first things we see is the planet Ludus. Ludus is a school planet in the Oasis. One of the few planets Wade can initially afford to go to. It's actually the hiding place for the first key, though that was changed in the movie. The Oasis is, of course, a massive gaming platform, so there are also just a ton of game references here. As we see outer space imagery, the music is a choral chanting, which I feel like is a nod to the main menu of Halo. Then we zoom into Minecraft world. The whole planet is dedicated to enthusiasts of the game Minecraft. There's also a sports-themed universe with a tennis ball planet, which could be a nod to Wii Tennis. The Wii was, of course, one of the first super popular interactive home consoles that Ernest Cline used as inspiration for the Oasis. This montage also contains some cinematic references. In the game Hurricane Hang Gliding, one of the houses floating in the cyclone looks a lot like the Gale House in The Wizard of Oz. And as Wade says, you can climb Mount Everest with Batman. We have a double whammy of Batman references here. The version of Batman we actually see is the Michael Keaton version, but the fact that he's scaling a cliffside is a nod to the classic Adam West Batman, where he and Robin would scale the sides of buildings that definitely weren't actually horizontal and kick it with random 60 stars.
You see, hi, Robin.
And then more references pop up in the Oasis entrance plaza. There's RoboCop and Marvin the Martian. And then in the walkway area, there are more gaming Easter eggs beneath the platform. Sonic the Hedgehog taps his foot, waiting in line to teleport. And in front of Sonic is Tracer from Overwatch. Then walking behind Wade are Hello Kitty and his young associates, Batsmaru and Karopi. And then passing this hulking figure, this is Atticus from Battleborn. Then Wade calls his buddy H, who's currently cleaning up on the planet Doom. Doom is a planet in the animated series Voltron. H's gun may be familiar to you. It's an MA5B assault rifle from Halo. This battle also features a ton of giant scorpions, which could be nods to the robot scorpions in the MS-DOS game Ultrabots. And then H's various challengers should be familiar to you. Duke Nukem fires a rocket launcher. Meanwhile, Wade's aunt's boyfriend Rick shows up as Jim Raynor from the StarCraft PC game. And one of the avatars who dies is a little girl who has a Donkey Kong Jr. poster in her bedroom. For the movie cameos here, Freddy Krueger is another avatar H kills. There's also a cameo by Freddy's longtime rival, Jason Voorhees. And the gun that H picks up and adds to the inventory is an EM1 railgun from the movie Eraser. I also like how the artifact of this battle is the Gregarious 120. It's a gauntlet that allows 2 interrupted minutes as a gigantic mech in-game. The reason we see this here is it's setting up Dilator fighting as the Gundam in the final battle. And then behind Wade here, there's an avatar wearing the yellow suit and red shirt that Doc Brown wore when he came back from the future, and Back to the Future. And the pop culture references continue as Wade introduces us to James Halliday. Music here is Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which was featured prominently in the 1999 TV movie Pirates of Silicon Valley, which is considered the most accurate biopic of the rise of people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. And that's essentially what we're seeing here. This tech press conference is shot to look a lot like the ones given by Steve Jobs back in the day. The relationship between Halliday and Morrow is modeled on the one between Wozniak and Jobs, with Halliday as the more introverted engineer who lets his partner do all the sales pitching. Though unlike Wozniak, Halliday actually becomes the more worshipped of the two. Actually, in Wade's van there is a newspaper clipping comparing Halliday to Steve Jobs. Mark Rylance's performance is one of the best parts of this movie. His blank stare and shy mumble seems to evoke Garth, Dana Carvey's character from Wayne's World, the SNL sketch in movies from the 80s and 90s. The joke Halliday makes here, check under your seats and you'll find there's nothing there, is a nod to Oprah Winfrey's famous car giveaway stunt. And Halliday's Will and Testament video is full of more nods. The whole room is decorated with Star Trek regalia. The flower arrangements and the stained glass form the shape of the Star Trek logo and the Starship Enterprise itself. Getting even nerdier with it, check out his coffin. This is the same black Mark VI pod and flag that Spock's remains were put in after his death at the end of the movie The Wrath of Khan. As Halliday rises out of the coffin, there's an organ riff as he creepily sits up, all as an homage to the old classic Dracula films. His announcement of an Easter egg hunt to take over his company was, of course, inspired by Willy Wonka's Golden Ticket contest from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And yeah, Halliday is certainly a Wonka figure. In fact, Spielberg actually wanted Gene Wilder to play the part before Gene Wilder passed away. Halliday's wizard avatar is Anorak, and his appearance seems to evoke the character Nicodemus from The Secret of Nim. That was created by Don Bluth, who's an old Spielberg collaborator. There are also some interesting nods to gaming here. On his eyes, Halliday has quarters from his birth year, 1972. Now, the quarter becomes a key idea for this whole movie. It's the cost of playing an old school arcade game, which back in the day opened kids up to a whole new life of exploration. Later, we'll see Morrow disguised as the robot curator in Halliday's archives, giving Parzival a quarter, which literally becomes an extra life at the end of the movie. In the epilogue of the movie, Wade reveals that Morrow's requested salary is only 25 cents a quarter. Essentially, this coin here marks this movie's transition from death at the beginning to life at the end. Halliday also wears a few buttons on his blazer here. One shows the game Simon, and another one that's a little harder to see. It has a 20-sided die. Of course, 20-sided die are used in Dungeons & Dragons. And I know this has been pointed out before, but the whole title image of this movie is itself a game. The letters form a maze that leads to this little Easter egg in the center. And for even more eggs, let's move on to this race for the proper key. First, the music being played here. This is Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, I Hate Myself for Loving You. It's kind of the perfect anthem for all of these gunters for their relentless obsession with Halliday's heartbreaking impossible race. And buckle up, because there are a ton of movie and TV references here. Parzival's car is a DeLorean from Back to the Future. It's also the car he drives in the book, except here it does not have the Ghostbusters logos printed on the side doors, or the ability to pass through solid matter, or the license plate Ecto-88. Instead, the license plate here says his name, Parzival. The DeLorean's interior is accurate to Back to the Future, with a flux capacitor and a time circuit board. If you look closely, the destination and origin dates are set to 1985 and 1955 as they are in the movie, but the present day has been updated to 2045 when Ready Player One takes place. And notice how the DeLorean has this glowing red bar on the grill. Now that is from Kit and Knight Rider. So even though we don't hear it, Wade has actually updated this car with an internal voice AI. Parzival's look is also an amalgamation of references. His hip holster is the same one worn by Han Solo in Star Wars, and his belt buckle is imprinted with a Thundercats logo. The back of his vest is embroidered with a golden sword, a reference to Parzival's name origin, Percival, the boy from the Legends of King Arthur and Holy Grail. And H disses his haircut by calling it There's Something About Mary Hair, which is a nod to when Cameron Diaz put something in her do that definitely wasn't hair gel. Other cars visible in this include 60 Batmobile, Ford Interceptor from Mad Max, Christine the Killer Plymouth Fury from the Stephen King novel and movie, the band from the A-Team, and the Mach 5 from Speed Racer. Later in the race, you can see another version of Kit from Knight Rider, and then a super subtle cameo from the Griswold station wagon from the National Lampoon's Vacation movie. And of course, Artemis's motorcycle, which is Kaneda's bike from the anime film Akira. The T-Rex that chases them through the streets appears to be a nod to Spielberg's chase scene in Jurassic Park. And King Kong makes a cameo, clutching the Empire State Building while biplanes zip past, as he does in the classic film and the Peter Jackson remake. And on the street, they pass a movie theater marquee reading Schwarzenegger Jack Slater 3. And that's a nod to the movie Last Action Hero, where Jack Slater is a movie within the movie. And back at IOI, the researchers have a map from the movie Escape from New York behind them on the wall, suggesting this version of Liberty Island is a modified version of the one that we saw in that movie. Again, this city is also a mix of different influences because Artemis jumps past a billboard for Delta City. That's the name of the futuristic Detroit in the movie RoboCop. This sequence also has a bunch of gaming Easter eggs. H's car is Bigfoot, one of the first famous monster trucks to launch the trend of monster truck rallies and toys. There are also cameos by Ryu from Street Fighter, Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, and Dizzy from Gears of War. And one of the other cars is a red Formula 1 car from the classic Atari game Pole Position. Artemis's Akira bike has a bunch of gaming-related stickers, one for Sega, Miss Pac-Man, Hello Kitty, and Taito, the Japanese game company. There's also a logo for the 80s TV show Greatest American Hero. There's also a few nods to comics here. On the bike, there's also a sticker with the Wonder Woman logo. And later, after Parzival saves Artemis from King Kong, Ace Chemicals is visible in the background. Ace Chemicals is from the DC Comics. It's where the Joker fell into the vat of acid. Next, we move on to H's workshop, in which everything is, once again, a reference. First, as they walk through the door, you can see the stolen bike from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And of course, there's the Iron Giant, the least subtle pop culture nod in this movie. It's not missable. No one missed it. Change it. Thank you. H's lunchbox is a print of Fraggle Rock, the Jim Henson Kid Show. And inside are small versions of the Galactica from the Battlestar Galactica, the Sulaco, the ship and aliens, and the spaceship Valley Forge, which is a deeper cut from the 70s movie Silent Running. On the rack behind them, you can see the Eagle 5, the Winnebago from Mel Brooks' Spaceballs, the yellow cargo loader from Aliens, though some say it looks more like the thing from Exo Squad, the ED-209 killer police droid from RoboCop, the red Swordfish 2 ship from the anime Cowboy Bebop, the EVA pod from Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, the Viper fighter from Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers Thunder Fighter from the 70s 80s TV show Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and the red 1961 Ferrari GT California that belonged to Cameron's dad in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This scene also features Parzival and Artemis quoting Halliday's favorite movie line from Superman.
Some people can read War and Peace and come away thinking it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe.
And Artemis calls Parzival McFly, not to Back to the Future. That's all it does. There are also some gaming references in the scene. Parzival quickly mentions Arrakis as a virtual destination. That's a place in the dune. And he and Artemis also mentioned the Atari 2600 racer game Turbo, as well as GoldenEye, the classic N64 Bond shooter. They say Halliday preferred slappers only mode, which means players can only fight unarmed. And his favorite character is Oddjob, which makes sense when we play GoldenEye. Oddjob is significantly shorter than anyone else and impossible to kill. And before we move on, I love the music references here. The song that H plays in the background is Just My Imagination by The Temptations, basically trolling Parzival's one-sided infatuation with Artemis in this moment. They also mentioned that Halliday's favorite song is Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, and it's easy to see why Halliday loved it. It was the first music video ever to air on MTV in 1981, and it marked a historic transition to a more interactive virtual mass medium, just like Halliday's invention of the Oasis did. However, they say Halliday's favorite video was Take On Me by Aha, which is also fitting because it shows live-action characters entering an animated world, becoming part of the stories of their imagination, just like users in the Oasis. Then we move back to the stacks, where Wade Watts explains the origin of his name, dropping 2 Marvel Comics references.
I picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner.
As Parzival visits Halliday's journals, we hear the song Faith by George Michael. In this moment, Parzival is trying to keep the faith and keep his eyes on the prize, not get too distracted by purpose. The archive section has a few more gaming nods. Behind the curator is a Tempest Atari game. In the book, Tempest plays a role in the final key challenge. Then, in the memory of Halliday and Morrow, Halliday mentions the game Asteroids as an example of a simple pleasure that never needs to change. Also, Halliday wears a Space Invaders t-shirt, and there's a poster of Galaga on the wall behind him. There's also some movie references here. The layout of the archives building is designed to be a replica of the high school library and the Breakfast Club, nightclub with the same furniture and staircases. That actually comes up later. Also, Halliday's memory mentions wanting to go backwards with pedal to the metal, like Bill and Ted, reference to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where the guys went back in time. Parzival uses this clue to win the race and the copper key, where he's greeted by Anorak with the phrase "Nice racing, Padawan." Of course, Padawan is the word for Jedi trainee from the Star Wars prequels. The next scene shows Nolan Sorrento pitching his evil Oasis monetization plan to the board of directors. And this doesn't really reference anything, but notice how the IOI logo makes a pattern when it's repeated on the screen. Visually, it kind of looks like a string of binary code, ones and zeros. To me, this kind of reflects the basic impersonal nature of the IOI, the corporate level, and the Sixers. They're just really a string of numbers. Moving on to Parzival and H's shopping spree at Avatar Outfitters, which feels like a possible reference to the store Urban Outfitters. Here, Z buys a holy hand grenade, which is a powerful weapon from the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He also buys the Zemeckis cube, which is in the shape of a Rubik's cube. It's a reference to Robert Zemeckis, director of Back to the Future. Z will use both of these later. And there's a bunch of kiosks in this place where you can purchase combat moves, including one for Looney Tunes. But most of them are from game-related worlds, so you can also see one for Street Fighter, showing Ryu doing a Shoryuken uppercut. For Shadowing, Z using a different move from Street Fighter at a key point later on. There are also kiosks for Overwatch, Halo, D&D, and Borderlands. And then checking in with Nolan Sorrento in IROC, there are some really fun details here. Search's password, which he stupidly has to write on a post-it note to remember it, is numbers and letters spelling out Bossman69. And if you look closely at their meeting place, it's in the rubble of one of the Martian tripods from Spielberg's movie War of the Worlds. The box that contains the orb that IROC gives Sorrento is its own little Easter egg. It's the same box that Gizmo was delivered in the movie Gremlins. IROC also references the old Tootsie Pop commercial from the 80s. The box's contents is the orb of Osubox, which takes the shape of a 20-sided die, another D&D reference. And for a few literary references, it's interesting how Sorrento gave his avatar a little hair curl, perhaps referencing Superman. If so, it's interesting that Sorrento would identify with Superman, while Halliday's favorite quote was a Lex Luthor line. Perhaps it reflects Sorrento as a shallow poser compared to the more complex, thoughtful Halliday. Also, when IROC holds up the skull, he says, "The steampunk pirate king, I knew him well, Sorrento." That's a reference to Shakespeare's Hamlet, when Hamlet famously holds the skull of his jester and says, "Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio." Not going to get misquoted as "I knew him well," as IROC does here with his joke, but I'll just go back to the theater nerd table. Moving on, when the rest of the high five win the copper key, Show wins by driving up what looks like a 77 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, the car that Burt Reynolds drove, and smoking the bandits. Definitely smoking here, it's literally on fire. And as Parzival makes his way back to Halliday's journals, we have more great 80s music with Blondie's One Way or Another, reflecting the competitive gun team craze that Parzival's discovery has inspired. He gets greeted by a ton of cameos from games. There's Batman from the Arkham Knight games, Lara Croft popping up again, Jill Valentine from the Resident Evil games, Supergirl from the Injustice games in the comics, and of course Goro from Mortal Kombat 2's really Artemis in disguise. There's also more movie references here with Beetlejuice also among the fans, and Artemis staring Z with a chest burster from the Alien franchise. Christopher Reeve's depiction of Clark Kent gets referenced with the Clark Kent glasses that Artemis makes Z wear to blend in. And in the second Halliday Morrow memory, Halliday talks about his lost love Karen, who went by Kira, a reference to the character in the Dark Crystal. Artemis refers to her as Halliday's Rosebud, referencing the movie Citizen Kane, which revolved around the search for a missing emotional influence on a deceased eccentric billionaire. Also some fun music references here. Halliday has a Billy Idol album on his desk, and if you listen closely when Artemis asks Z out, you can hear the sound of a Mario 1-up. Moving on to H's basement, where there are even more music references. Parzival tries on various outfits, including Prince's Purple Rain trench coat, Michael Jackson's Thriller outfit, and an outfit inspired by Duran Duran. There are also some gaming references here. H has a tabletop version of Pac-Man, and Z's punk outfit has the letters DK on the back, perhaps a reference to Donkey Kong. And movie and TV Easter eggs everywhere too. There's a neon sign reading Cocktails and Dreams, which is from the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail. There's also a vintage poster for Mad Max, and Parzival settles on an outfit inspired by the movie Buckaroo Banzai. You may also spot a TARDIS from Doctor Who in that room, and a shirt saying Save Ferris from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And there are two fun political posters. One shows the actor Will Wheaton, who in the world of Ready Player One is a vice president of the Oasis. In real life, he narrated the audiobook for Klein's novel. Another says re-elect Mayor Goldie Wilson, which is a reference to Back to the Future. Goldie Wilson was Hill Valley's mayor, whom Marty inspired to run for office when Goldie was still sweeping floors at the diner. Moving on to the Distracted Globe nightclub, with even more movie and TV references. Line of ships headed toward the planet feature the Serenity from Firefly, and some have spotted an X-Wing from Star Wars in a group of ships. Inside the club are Conan the Barbarian and Gandalf from Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit spinning among the dancers. There's also some DC Comics cameos. Z passes Deathstroke on the way into the club. Harley Quinn used to be with him in an early trailer, but now she appears to be dancing with the Joker. There's also some gaming cameos from Street Fighter. Chun-Li and Blanca show up behind Artemis at the bar. There's also a cameo by Commander Shepard from Mass Effect wearing his M7 armor. The music references here are also great. At first you can hear Blue Monday by New Order. New Order used to be the band Joy Division, who makes its own cameo in the movie later on. Also the bartender is wearing a red Energy Dome hat worn by the band Devo. And then after Z and Artemis take the leap and dance, Z throws out a disco dance floor and plays the BG Staying Alive. There's all references to their music in the scene from Saturday Night Fever. Then the IY soldiers burst in and engage in a shootout, giving us some fun references with these weapons. Parzival's blaster is a Starlight pistol from the 80s laser tag game, and one of Artemis' handguns is a Magnum pistol from Halo. Those who play Halo know this one is a crazy deadly pistol, and that a game programmer doubled the damage of right before the game shipped out. Her other handgun is a movie reference. It's Lawgiver, used by Judge Dredd. And before she pulls these out, she actually uses a bigger gun. It's an M41A pulse rifle, the same kind used by Ripley in Aliens. The sequence ends with the awesome callback to the Zemeckis cube, which Z reveals can rewind time 60 seconds. The moment this happens, you can hear a music cue from the Back to the Future score. Alan Silvestri, who composed Back to the Future, is also the composer on this movie. Moving on to Wade's confrontation with Sorrento. Sorrento offers Wade a Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, which is apparently really rare in the Oasis. And these two test each other's 80s trivia knowledge, with Wade saying Ridgemont or Faber, referencing the movies Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Animal House, which takes place at Faber College. Meanwhile, Sorrento's researchers are really helping him remember the name of Shermer High School, which is the name of the fictional high school in both Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Breakfast Club, both directed by John Hughes. Sorrento goes on to say he just wants to drink tab, play Robotron, listen to Duran Duran. It's referencing a popular tab soft drink in the 80s, the game Robotron, and yeah, the band. And after Wade turns him down and Sorrento threatens his home in a sack, some shots of the graffiti drawn on those trailers includes this blue Madball toy, Rap Vial. Madballs actually show up again later as an explosive. Speaking of this graffiti, others have said that they spotted Raven from Teen Titans among all this artwork. Moving on, when Wade meets Samantha face to face, she's wearing a Joy Division shirt. Joy Division is that 80s band that became New Order. And later when she figures out the second clue, we see that her Oasis visor has a Batman sticker on it as well, just like Wade's did. In the journals, the High Five mentions a few 80s movies that were playing on the weekend. Halliday went on his one date with Kira, the remake of The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg, Say Anything, and Spielberg's movie Firestarter is also visible among those. Okay, now we move on to my favorite part of the movie, Spielberg's shot-for-shot recreation of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Guys, there's just so much I loved about the sequence, so I'm gonna point out all the little details that were just like perfectly nailed. First, the name of the movie theater that they go into is the Overlook, which is the name of the haunted hotel in The Shining. Also, a poster for Return of the Jedi is visible outside the movie theater. The creepy synth music that plays here is the exact score from the opening shots of The Shining, composed by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkin. This wide shot of the Overlook lobby is the same angle Kubrick used in the movie when Wendy swings the bat at Jack as he follows her up the stairs. And this upward-facing shot of Parzival's face looking down the typewriter is the same angle of Wendy when she learns what Jack's really been writing all the time. Same goes for the typewritten pages with text in various shapes. We also get little cameos by the tennis ball that rolls up to Danny, rolls up to H here. The Grady twins, the blood elevator slow motion shot, the final group photograph with Halliday and Kira in place of Jack, room 237 and the beautiful / terrifying woman inside, the axe coming through the door, the hedge maze, the walk-in freezer, Danny's big wheel, and the sliding pan into the gold room. And for all this, Silvestri resamples the Shining score with the creepy string music as well as the 20s dance music that plays at the end of the movie. Artemis is the one who makes it to the second key and she gets the next clue, which makes two number references. The answer ultimate is a reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. The clue also references the number magic, which refers to the Schoolhouse Rock song, in which 3 is magic number. Dividing 42 by 3 is how they got 14, which is the sector where the final key is hidden. Actually, if you look closely at Wade and Samantha's notes, you can see the brainstorm that deduced all this. The notes reference I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, a line from Highlander, and the other side of this notebook lists the movies Gremlins, Dark Crystal, Temple of Doom, Krull, Splash, Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Okay, now jumping ahead
here, Wade meets H in real life, Helen, along with Daito/Toshiro, and Sho. Her van and her clothes feature a ton of references. First, the back door has this image that's from the Tomb of Horrors and Dungeons & Dragons. The book that was actually the location of the first key. Also, Toshiro has a pin on his jacket with the logo from Mortal Kombat. Meanwhile, Sho is wearing this S. Letterman jacket. Now, the S could just be for his name, Sho, and the yellow for the colors of his avatar. But to me, this kind of looks like Emilio Estevez's Letterman jacket from the Breakfast Club. Different colors, but the S patch and the little thing in the middle of it kind of the same. There's also another Batman sticker in the back of the van because they're everywhere. And then there's H's jacket with a ton of patches. There's one for Thundercats and the Lips logo from Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then there's a few DC comic related ones. A patch for the Wonder Woman W logo, another with Diana with her arms crossed, and another for Supergirl. Okay, as we see IOI try to unlock the third key, the whiteboard behind the researchers shows Isengard as one of the possible locations. That's the home of Saruman from Lord of the Rings. And the final key is hidden among a series of classic Atari 2600 games. Centipede, Pitfall, Haunted House, Berserk, Defender, Sword Quest, Motocross, and Adventure all get shoutouts. Adventure, we find out, is actually crucial to the ending, and it's part of the book as well. It's considered one of the first ever Easter eggs in a video game, in which the game designer, Warren Robinette, coded his name into it after Atari refused to really give credits for royalties recognition to developers. There are also more movie references. The Sixers falling through the ice could be a reference to the Dark Knight Rises, when condemned Gothamites were forced by Bane's forces to walk out on thin ice. And the phrase that Irok speaks as the incantation to activate the orb might sound familiar to you. It's the spell from the movie Excalibur. When Wade and Toshiro trap Sorrento in the Oasis when he thinks he's in reality, notice the eyes of the fake avatars of Wade and Toshiro. They glow in this orange-white color. This could be a nod to Blade Runner, where you could tell if someone was a replicant if their eyes glowed this color. Also, this may just be me, but Daito's whole look here with a suit, a silencer gun as he traps the target in a dream world pretending it's reality. Just seems like a plot point at least inspired by the movie Inception, because that's essentially what the extractors are doing, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt looking all fly as he's trapping Cillian Murphy. And then we get quick throwaway reference to the Nancy Drew books. Samantha sees them on Sorrento's console. But really, the Easter eggs start to pour in when Wade makes his call to arms speech. The projector device that he uses to transmit his speech is a magic 8-ball toy. He also references the Gunter clans and the gold mines of Gygax. Gygax is a nod to Gary Gygax, the co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons. And then the waves of Gunters arrive, and you can see Battletoads from the Nintendo game, Zitz, Pimple, and Rash. There's also appearance from one of the Joust ostriches, who had a big cameo in the trailer, but really only showed up here in the movie. In the book, Wade actually has to win a game of Joust to win the copper key. There are also cameos by Battleborn characters Eldragon, Ambra, and Toby, Cassie Cage from Mortal Kombat, the Spartans from Halo, and Big Daddy from Bioshock. Tracer, Lara Croft, and Chun-Li return as well. There's also quick shots of Sonic and Tails, the female shepherd from Mass Effect 3, and Sagat from Street Fighter. And then there's some cameos from DC Comics. The Joker returns along with Spawn and Batgirl. Catwoman shows up running alongside Tracer, and Deadshot definitely makes an appearance. A wide shot of the battle also shows the giant Cyclops from the Seven Voyages of Sinbad. And yeah, lots and lots of movie references. Leading the charge in the opening wave looks like Toka from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. There are also cameos by the Transformer, Optimus Prime, He-Man, Deadite from the Evil Dead movies, Chucky from Child's Play, and a cameo that the animator snuck in as surprise Steven Spielberg himself. A few gremlins. Here, Irok puts his hand on Sorrento's shoulder and says, "No man is a failure who has friends." It's a reference to the movie It's a Wonderful Life. The Angel Clarence wrote it to George Bailey in the book that he gave him at the end. And of course, Parzival holds the stereo over his head, referencing John Cusack's Immortal Move and Say Anything. But instead of Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes, he plays Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It, which is really the perfect rebel anthem for these Gunters to open war against IOI. Now, there's a ton of other Easter eggs and cameos in this section that I'm still trying to figure out where one is. It's tough because a lot of people are just saying, "I swear to God, I saw Iron Man and Pikachu." Did you know? Because you'd think Ready Player One would highlight those cameos with their own big cool shots that no one would miss. Guys, those are bigger gets than Chucky and Battletoads. But here's a quick list of ones that I'm pretty sure I spotted. Mercy and Doomfist from Overwatch, Arbiter and Grunt from Halo, Red Lion from Voltron, Sub-Zero and Raiden from Mortal Kombat, Aquaman, the Flash, and Blue Beetle from DC Comics, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I'll have to rewatch to find exactly where I saw them. But then Sorrento brings up his display to summon the Mechagodzilla from, of course, the Godzilla movies to fight H's Iron Giant. But before he does, if you look closely at his display, one of the options looks a lot like Megatron from Transformers. Daito fights Mechagodzilla by using H's Gregarious 120 to become a Gundam. To be specific, it's an RX-78 mobile suit. Neato. Artemis shoots a hole in Mechagodzilla's eye and tosses in another one of these Madball toys. Explodes like a massive grenade. And when she gets to the steps of Anorak's castle, she uses this chainsaw lancer rifle. Now this is from the Gears of War, though Artemis only fires it as a blaster rather than using that chainsaw function. Bummer. After Irok blows a bridge, H uses Iron Giant's body as a bridge to let the others cross. Now this could be a reference to the way Superman used his body to bridge the gap for a train full of innocents. Sho uses his 5-bladed pinwheel to cut off Irok's arm. This is the glaive from the movie Krull, which was referenced earlier. And when Iron Giant falls in the lava, it gives a big thumbs up. This is a reference to the end of Terminator 2 when Arnold's T-100 lowers into molten metal with Skynet tech and leaves John Connor with a friendly thumbs up. Inside the castle, Parzival forces Artemis to leave them behind and escape from IOI, and he shoots her with this particular gun. This is a blaster from Battlestar Galactica. And we get a callback of the Holy Hand grenade. Notice that when it explodes, it takes out all the Sixers, making the sound of an angelic choir, just like it does in Monty Python. Meanwhile, out in the real world, IOI chases down High Five's van in the street, and H makes this Mario reference. And back inside the Oasis, Parzival takes out Sorrento with a Hadouken fireball attack. This is a move from Street Fighter, of course. Parzival probably picked up in that kiosk earlier. Then when Sorrento moves to activate the Cataclysm, Irok calls it a, quote, camper move. And that's game lingo used for newbies who camp out in hard-to-reach spots near respawning ammo or weapons. Basically, it's kind of like cheating because you suck. And that's what Sorrento's doing here. But Parzival survives thanks to this extra life from Og. He finds the Easter egg in Adventure and reaches the final Easter egg. Now notice the pedestal. The two dragons form the logo of the game Mortal Kombat. Also, if you look in the background, there are statues of Mortal Kombat characters. Raiden, Sub-Zero, and Scorpion. Parzival refuses to sign the contract, and Anorak, moved by his nobility, takes him to Halliday's childhood bedroom with more little Easter eggs. There's a poster for the game Joust, a Robbie the Robot toy from Forbidden Planet, a Pac-Man poster, and a statue of King Kong. The Atari game that young Halliday is playing is Gorf, and Halliday's final words to Parzival are, "Thank you for playing my game," which could be a nod to Super Mario 64. After the credits roll, Mario says, "Thank you so much for playing my game." And a few movie references here. The VHS, the 80s movie interface, can be seen on Halliday's shelf, along with a poster for the movie Lady Hawk. One of his computers is an MSI 8080, which is a computer Matthew Broderick uses to hack NORAD in the movie War Games. War Games is actually a big part of the second key in the book. Halliday showing Wade this red button looks like yet another wink at Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which ended with Wonka showing Charlie a red button in the elevator before handing off the keys to his empire. And during the scene, Halliday quotes classic film star Groucho Marx, saying, "I'm not crazy about reality, but it's still the only place to get a decent meal." This is essentially Halliday's final lesson to Wade, that as fun as it is to escape in the Oasis, it cannot completely replace real life. You may have also noticed the poster for the Rush album 2012, the lyrics of which actually play a major role in the book as well. Remember, H is actually wearing the art for this album on her t-shirt. Meanwhile, in the real world, Wade's neighbor, Mrs. Gilmore, returns, and now her shirt has changed from the Police to one showing the Technique album by New Order. And we get one last Sylvester Back to the Future music sting when Sorrento gets punched in the face. This moment evokes how good it feels in Back to the Future to see the bad guy get walled in the mouth. Something you should not do in your life, because a bunch of people in the face can kill people. The final scene leaves us with a few lovely Easter eggs. Wade's new apartment features the life-size statue of Robbie the Robot, as well as an arcade game, Revenge from Mars. And if you look closely in the background, Wade placed a Star Trek Klingon Batleth on the windowsill. Sorry if I mispronounced that, Trekkies. And on the far left, you can make out an R2-D2 toy. Finally, the music that plays over the credits is Hall & Oates' You Make My Dreams Come True. Spielberg chose the song after learning it was the music that Ernest Cline and his wife walked down the aisle to at their wedding. And he is right. It is exactly the song that plays in every nerd's heart when he imagines making out with his dream girl. Keyword, imagines. The movies ain't real life. Okay, I think I'm dead. That's a lot of Easter eggs, guys. Maybe you got a few of these on your own. Hopefully, we'll find even more stuff when this movie comes out on HD Blu-ray.
Okay, that was nice, but now I do have a question. What do companies and movie production houses do with articles now that are to be used further on in life? Well, generally aren't. I mean, I can understand them reusing the t-shirts with references, or like giving them away or selling them. But what about specific articles? If someone knows, do let me know. That's all for tonight, guys. It's 5 p.m. I should be asleep. 5 a.m. Sorry, I should have been asleep, but I was not. So good night, tata, bye bye. Thank you for joining my stream if you did. Thank you for watching this video if you did. That's my reaction to it. Thank you, good night, goodbye.